Hello everybody. So I hope some of you join us today. I don't know how many people will join us. Normally my lives are pretty much talk to myself, leave. So
Yeah, yeah.
you know the feeling, Ellie. I know.
Yes, yes, yes. But it's
So
funny, people do watch. It's interesting the amount of people who will come back to me later and say, "Oh, do you remember that one you did on but?" And I would like,
yes,
like
yes, they
sure.
do. They do. When you look at the figures afterwards, quite often there's been
Mm,
people watching that haven't actually popped up and said anything or interacted at all. So yeah,
no.
yeah, you do get
And,
watched, I
and
know.
I'm guilty of that too. Like,
Oh yes.
someone will be saying something, I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. But I never, so it's a promise I've made to myself to like start being more free with my opinions and feedback with stuff.
Okay. Okay. All right. That's
Hmm.
quite interesting. So today I'm talking to Ellie, who is runs a page called Headway
Yep.
with Ellie Megraw, and also has a group called The Big Switch,
Yep.
and has a program called Soul Ignition. So we're going to touch on all of those at some point today.
Mm-hmm.
Ellie, tell me, describe your younger self in 3 words.
Oh, my younger self. Oh, hi, young. Oh, is that a trick question? Depends on when you ask me. So, like, my childhood self was fun, gregarious, determined. And
Oh,
then,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, she's pretty feisty, but not necessarily as feisty as like my London self. Like
Okay.
my London self, she was a bit lost, confused, but really feisty.
Okay.
Um,
So the feisty and determination has remained throughout, has it?
yeah, yeah. I've always been quite um, feisty. I don't know. Like, everyone's like, "Oh, it's the red hair and the Irish." So,
Yes,
um,
we have red Irish running through our family. Skips a couple of generations. Skip me, obviously.
yeah. The feisty's changed though. I think the feisty when I was young was protection,
Okay.
whereas the feisty now is just a zest as opposed to
Okay.
like full on, like
Yes.
let's protect kind of mode.
Okay. Okay, that's
Yeah.
interesting.
Hmm.
You'll have to excuse me. I'm full of hay fever. Um, so yeah,
Oh,
got tissues at the ready. Um,
yeah.
um, so you did NLP training.
Yep.
Yeah. What
Yep.
was your biggest takeaway from that?
Oh, so many.
Yeah.
So NLP stands for Neuro Linguistic Programming. So I often think loads of people know what it is, but often there's probably only a small percentage of people who actually know what it is.
Okay.
And it kind of gets a bad rap because people who've learned the methodology have used their powers for evil and
Okay.
manipulation.
Okay.
Yeah. Even if you look at the wiki page, like there's like lots of there's like really bad stuff on there about neurolinguistic
Oh,
programming.
really?
And like there's
Okay.
been tons of requests to change it, but they won't change it for whatever reason.
Okay.
Um, but for me, like the biggest realization for me
Hmm.
and the biggest aha for me with neurolinguistic programming was that you don't have to be at the mercy of your mind and your thoughts and the patterns and the behaviors that exist in your life right now. Because once you understand how they're created, you can change them.
Yes. Yes. I certainly think that's the biggest takeaway for me is that you can
Mm-hmm.
actually change your mind because, 20 years ago, I think the opinion was that what you were set basically by your childhood, and there was
Yep.
nothing you could do about it. So you were either a pessimistic person, or you were a, depressive person, or you were a
Yeah,
whatever.
you're
All of these.
labeled. Let's label them all.
Exactly. You were labeled, and there was nothing you could do about it. And I think
Mm.
the move towards you can do something about this, no matter where you've come from, has been a
Yeah.
really positive move forward.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And oh, like there's still so many people that I see stuck at the mercy. And I am too. Like there's certain things and patterns and behaviors that I have in my life that not necessarily ones that I like, but they're there and I'm not prepared to do anything about them just yet. So there's kind of that distinction of, there's the ones that you have that you don't really mind, that don't really affect your life too much, or you've got the ones that are whoppers that seriously need changing. But until that awareness has been brought to your consciousness that, this is not working, we need to change it, and that path of least resistance is too hard, then people are prepared to do the work.
Yes. Yeah. I have the same sort of theory about migration. You live in a country that you don't, there's something about the country that you don't particularly like, but you have to reach that point for yourself where the discomfort of staying where you are is less than the, the discomfort of moving is less than the discomfort of staying where you are. Exactly. And then you do something about it. And I think that's exactly the same thing that you're saying. You have to be unhappy enough about something that's in your life in order to do something about it. Yeah,
exactly. Because we're programmed to do the path of least resistance. Everything about us is so automatic, like the unconscious. Because a lot of the work that I do is in the unconscious mind, and so the unconscious mind is your body. It's your thoughts. It's, we only really have about 10% brain power that's conscious. Okay. And so everything that we're doing is all happening at an unconscious level. And so until we kind of sit, because it's like the mind's MO is to take everything and push it into automatic. So as quickly as it can, because it needs that conscious working space to do other things.
Okay.
And so that's, that cycle of learning where you're like consciously, unconsciously competent and you kind of move through. So the unconscious MO is like, right, get this into unconscious. So then it's just sitting in there that you're not actually fully aware of what's happening in the background. You're just seeing the consequences or the symptoms. I like to call them symptoms of what's actually happening. So being able to recognize that these symptoms are too hard, just like I need to remember the story properly, but there's like the story that the dog sat on the tack and the dog wouldn't move off the tack because it wasn't sore enough. It was far more powerful. I need to go back and find out what the real one is. But like my aunt walked around with a broken hip for 10 years. And it was only when the whole thing went that she was prepared to go and get help for it. Wow. So, Wow. So we're all kind of walking around with these things that it's like, oh, it's not bad enough yet. It's not bad enough yet. It's when things become really uncomfortable is when we then are motivated to take action.
And also, I guess part of the problem is that sometimes it takes a bit of digging, doesn't it, to find out what really is the cause.
Yep. And sometimes people will just, they're happy to sit in the discomfort because digging to find the cause causes even more discomfort. But there's so much beauty in that and power in that, because then when so much stuff sits in the unknown, it has so much more power than when you kind of put it out on the table. Like when you've got a problem in your mind and you go and you're like, and it seems so massive, and then you tell it to someone and they're like, okay. It's not, and then you say it out loud and you're like, actually it's not quite as bad as I thought it was. Okay. So it's like when we take it into that conscious awareness, the power that it reigns on us in the unconscious, where it's left to run riot without anyone checking it, and massively disappears.
Okay. All right. And do you ever get frustrated at people who are not quite ready to?
As a coach, no. As a sister, mother, daughter, friend, yes.
Yes, all the
time. As a coach, I recognize that people have their own individual journeys, and whenever they're ready, they're ready. And I won't work with someone if I don't think that they're fully ready to, that they've experienced the discomfort enough. but friends or family or people who just come to the same narrative over and over and over again, but they're not actually prepared to do anything about it. That's really frustrating.
Okay, fair enough. And so why do you stay in coaching? What's the why? What's the what keeps you there?
I only realized this about a year ago, where I've actually been a trainer since I was 19.
Okay.
So that's 20 years of me teaching in, like, not in an education perspective, but like teaching as part of my career. And I was kind of like, oh wow, like that's a really long time to be doing this. But up until I did my master practitioner in NLP, I had nothing that really excited me. I couldn't connect to anything that really got me like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like, all these people had like hobbies and, passions in their lives that they were just like, and they were amazing at and they were really good at. I had never found that. Like, I'd never connected to that that level of excitement about something. And when I did my master practitioner in NLP, I was like, oh my god, this stuff's amazing. Like, everyone needs to do this. Like, every person needs to like come and do this stuff, because it's incredible. And like, I only just learned it, and I'd, one of the first sessions that I did, this woman who had never allowed herself to connect to her future and her family, which was a thing that was like, she cried the whole session because she could never let herself even think about having a family. And I, like, by the end of the session, she was like laughing, and she had her kids running in and jumping on her in their bed, and their partner coming in with breakfast. And I was like, oh my God, like, that's amazing. Like, the power of this stuff. And it's mostly through language, which is even more powerful, because we speak every day, and yet we're so careless with our words and our intentions. So like, I was like, oh. And so having this set of skills and tools, and just like how much it had impacted me, and how I changed my perception of me, and then being able to use it and help other people do that, I was like, oh, like, this is amazing. Like, it's so powerful. I was like, okay, I can't not use this. Like, I can't not help people in this way when it's so easy. And so, like, works so well. I mean, people don't have to sit in the story. So people don't have to sit in the narrative of the old and keep replaying it and rehashing it. It's all about outcomes and solutions. So yeah, that's a really long answer to your question.
That's perfect. That's perfect. It's really interesting because it ties into, I've been doing some reading about language and language's effect on how you feel, and how you project, what's going to happen next, basically, by the language that you use.
Yep.
So yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah,
massive. Like, people tell you all the time, like, what they believe, what they value, what they're creating in their lives, if you know what you're listening for. And that then gives power as a coach to then start to dissect and actually pull apart those beliefs that aren't really true, because often we're running around with a like, it's a false sense of the truth based on our deletions, distortions, and generalizations that happen.
Always. I always,
I never, they never do that, or that's because they did this, but it's, the mind is really beautiful. Like, that process, like, when you think about it, we can only handle 130, I think it's 134, 137 bits of information a second.
Okay.
But we're getting bombarded with 2 million bits of it. If you imagine trying to like grab 134 toothpicks every second and just keeping up with that, that's insane. But we get 2 million bits of information every second. So we can actually process that stuff in our little biocomputer in there. So we have that process of deleting, distorting, and generalizing so that we can then pick out those 137 that actually mean the most to us based on our past experiences and the beliefs and the patterns that we've created up until then. So knowing where these deletions, distortions, and generalizations are happening, we can actually start to then pick those and understand them on a deeper level and get people to then start to question them and query them and challenge them so that they can create a different outcome.
Okay, so effectively we're filtering that bombardment and just picking up the stuff that's key to us, basically, coming from where we're coming from.
So my 137 are different to your 137, which are different to the next person's 137.
Okay. So do you find yourself now, wherever you go, constantly analysing everybody? Pretty much as soon as you open your mouth, we're telling you something, aren't we?
It depends. Like I used to get this all the time when people are like, "Are you NLPing me?" No, I have to pay attention. Like I don't like. Sometimes I don't mean to. I often I did have this thought recently. So I was like, I don't really get into like good conversations anymore, and I have to learn how to. Because sometimes I'll open stuff that I don't mean to open, and I'm like,
quickly close
because it's just part of who I am now in terms of. So I need to then kind of like pull that back a little bit and try and understand a little bit more about, making that difference between coaching, training, and just being a person. Because, but I do it all the time with my kid and my partner. It helps. It gets me the things that I want, but and it helps them to understand me better. So when I'm trying to like, and I know when I'm not being mindful of my language and my interactions, because things start to fall apart. Like, there's arguments and there's like, things that come up because I'm like, I'm just like, I'm throwing away my comments because I'm being lazy.
And children particularly, aren't they? They're just so sensitive to any sort of change. They're constantly watching their parents.
Yes, like little mimics. But I actually left his daycare yesterday. It's like, see you later, kids. He's 2.5.
Oh, bless.
It's funny. He's like, hey guys, what are you doing? I'm like, what?
I always say that there is no escaping when you've got children. You can't keep anything. You can't keep secrets when you have children, because they will just blurt it out to whoever is nearest.
Totally. And you don't think they're listening, and then the next thing they're like, I was like, oh, okay.
So tell me, what do you think is the major challenge for women in business nowadays? Do you see the same thing coming up over and over and over again with the people that you work with?
Yeah, for me, for sure. So I help women in business that stop holding themselves back. So often, women get into business because they want to have some flexibility around their family. And they maybe are a reluctant entrepreneur, but they're still, they're in there. But they're not really achieving the things that they want to do within their business. And it's not just a pattern that showed up in their business, but it's a pattern that's been showing up in their lives. And often, like the things that I see that are massively recurrent are, the good girl So, you just do what's expected. You don't challenge the status quo. It's like you be seen and not heard and stuff. So being able to voice the things that is going on and actually being forthright with what you want to do and be aligned with your business. Because it's like, well, such and such said I should do this, and so I'll just do that, as opposed to like, okay, well, where's my deep yearning? Like, where's my truth in this? And that's like, where's my truth? My truth used to wind me up so much because I'd be like, well, I don't know what my truth is. Like, what? What is this abstract thing that people keep talking about? As I've kind of done this deeper exploration, I know what that truth is now. Like, I'm more okay with, saying no, saying yes to saying the things that are a bit icky, and being okay with that. Another thing that I see women doing are people pleasing. So they just say yes, they overpromise, they do things that they don't want to do. They don't feel like they can stand up for themselves.
Yeah. I was just about to say to you, do you think people don't explore what they want to do rather than what they think they should do because they want to toe the line, basically, because women are so compliant, aren't they? Yeah.
And it's not a bad thing. It's just a condition that was put on us for however many years. That is, I think is part of my job to help rewrite that and help women really explore, like, what does my power actually look like? What does alignment for me actually mean for my business, my children? Because I think, my big mission in this world is to help free women from that oppression, from that, holding themselves back for the fear of what everyone else thinks of them and expects of them. And as part of that, I think it's about teaching the younger generations, who they, because a lot of people don't know who they are. They don't know what makes them happy, what makes them truly happy. They have things that people have told them, and this is not for everyone, but the people that I work with, they toe the line because that's been what it's been expected of them. People have just told them what to do, and they've just complied. And it's like, we can't let our children come through life anymore like that and not have a way to determine their own value and their own worth. Because, a lot of the people that I work with don't have an internal checklist of, how do I know I'm worthy? They only get it from external validation. And then if you're not getting that external validation, then they don't feel worthy.
No.
Which I'm like, oh no, it's like that is such an, because we're forced out of our bodies and out of our, out of that perfect little bundle of love into the intellectual, into fear, into all this, negativity, because it's like how you survive. It's like, let's get really, like, that's why Soul Ignition was created, because it's like, we're so disconnected. Most of us are here that soul expression just kind of gets lost because it's so in the intellect.
Yes. And so do you think you can't reach your potential if you're constantly looking for external validation? Can you just, because you are constantly doing what you think you should be doing in order to keep other people happy rather than doing what you're meant to do?
Yeah, because if you're like, this is really funny. So I, up until last September, I got my left and rights mixed up all the time. I could never get my left and right. I've been holding up my right hand and go left, it's like, and I did a process, and it was, it put me back in the driver's seat of my life, and it gave me back the control of what it is that I'm doing and creating. And what I realized is that all the way through my life, I was looking at all my decisions and things from other people's point of views. So when I was trying to give left and rights, I was always given the opposite because I was always looking at the reflection rather than what is actually, coming from me centered. And I can do it now. Like, I'm like, yeah, it doesn't annoy me. But then if I start to realize when that starts to go, I'm like, hang on, I'm putting my power outside of myself again. I have to bring it back in again. And so I think having that internal checklist of, how do I know I'm valuable? How do I know I'm worthy? Because if someone isn't telling me that I'm worthy, or someone's telling me that I'm not worthy, then, that's not a good way to live. That's like, always searching and needing credibility from other sources. Means that we're always kind of fractured and coming at things from a place of incongruence. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. All right. What's the best thing you've ever done that you wish everybody would do?
NLP.
NLP. Finding that way, finding the internal validation.
I don't know if you could, like, if you did level 1, it just gives you the foundations of, like, how does my mind actually work? Like, what are the constructs that exist? And that kind of gives you an entryway into playing with those constructs. Even just playing with the images that your mind creates. We talk in symbols all the time because the unconscious mind can only store images and symbols, can't actually store, words and things. So when we remember something, it's generally an image.
Okay.
Right? Or, it feels like a big block, like a big boulder is in front of me. We're creating these images, and that level 1 is helping you understand what those images are actually doing in terms of the patterns and the behaviors and the feelings and the emotions that you're running in your life. So if you're like, yeah, I can't make any money, it's like I've got a hole in my pocket. So it's like unconsciously, every time you think about that hole in your pocket, you're saying to the unconscious mind, hey, like all the money that goes in there, can you push it out? Can you get rid of it? And you start to realize that you playing with those constructs, you can then start to create positive benefits for you and your life and your business.
Wow, that's interesting. So is that why vision boards work?
Yeah.
Because you're envisioning what's going to be your future.
Yeah. Vision boards only work, though, when there is a positive charge. So you have to be really excited by the images that you've put on your board.
Okay.
So if there's no emotional reaction to the stimulus, it's not as powerful as when you see that, I've got a bank statement where I've like rubbed out all the numbers and put heaps more zeros and stuff in. And, it's like every day I connect to that and I'm like, getting that, that feeling, that emotion of when it's actually going to, like, because it's happened. So I'm telling my unconscious mind, it's like, oh yeah, like we can make that happen because it's already happened.
Okay.
Fun.
Yes. That makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah. I understood that before. Yeah.
Okay. In the law of attraction always kind of eluded me a little bit because I didn't understand the law of vibration, because the two of them work together.
Okay.
So until like your vibration matches what it is you're trying to attract, it won't come to you.
It doesn't connect. Okay.
No.
Okay. And that's probably why there's a lot of mixed, like there is about the NLP, there's a lot of mixed feeling about whether it works or not, the law of attraction.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, just think about it and it'll happen. No. It's like you really have to connect to what is it going to feel like when you've got that. Or even if it's just like really deep joy and love, because they're the highest vibrations. That's why the negative stuff works so well, because the vibrations match.
Okay.
You know, because when you're looking at the low bank balance and the anxiety, the charge is there. So it's like, oh, let's keep making that happen.
That makes sense. That's as strong as emotion as the joy and the love, basically, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. All right. What's the last book that you read?
Don't
know.
It's this one. It's called Transforming Yourself. So it's how to use the constructs of your mind to create who you think you are. So it's by Steve Andreas, who's like one of the founding members of NLP. And one of the things that I love about his work is that it's content free. So you don't even need to know the stories. It's just how it's stored in the mind. And then you use the storage trick to store new beliefs and new memories.
Okay.
It's really trippy. It's taken me a while. But you know what? I just started today again. It's the second time.
Okay. And do you recommend it?
Yeah. I'm reading it and I'm like, oh, here we go. I've read it before. Because it was a segment got read out in a kinesiology session that I had. And I was like, okay, and her quotes is one of my favorite quotes, the ones like you're more afraid of being more powerful than you know. And Marianna Williamson. And this is all about how we live in fear and how we've kind of disconnected ourselves, which is causing like disease and hurt. And we turn to things like alcohol and drugs and TV to numb ourselves away from, because we do all that stuff because we don't really like who we are. And we're trying to distance from the self. So this is how you can, it's a sort of her take on how you can come back to that space of love and and not need to do those things because you fully accept who you are. Okay.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. What's the best advice you've ever been given, and or do you have a sort of mantra that you live by?
Best piece of advice I've ever been given. Well, my dad always used to say to me when I was younger, a piece of paper is easy carried. So I'm like, oh, okay. So I do study a lot. I like, and for someone who was like disgusted at her biology teacher for going back to school when she was 13. Why would you do that? Why would you go back to school after you finished? Blah blah blah. So what he's now like, I need to have my head in something. But it's more for me now, not necessarily the acquisition of knowledge, but it's the experience of the application. It's like the powerful things for me have been where I've consumed and I've understood, but then I've applied. And that's what I like to bring to my teachings, and where people can actually, it's not just a theoretical thing and you go, yeah, great, I know this now. It's like, okay, well, what does that actually mean for me in my life? And how can I make changes that are not just for today, but, for however long down the line.
Okay.
You don't have to be constrained by who you are today. I think is probably the best piece of advice I could give to anyone. If you want to be successful, you can be that, but you just have to figure out what's holding you back and be brave enough to face it.
Yeah. Frees you up to go and seek whatever it is that you're looking for. Yeah. Wherever
but
you want to be, rather than what you're looking for. Yeah.
But the thing that I notice the most is that people, we walk around with this who we think we are. And it's the scariest thing in the world. Like, and I know because I've done it.
Mm.
This piece of who we think we are, and it's like, and that piece needs to go in order for us to grow. But the fear of when that goes, what does that mean? And that often holds people back, because it's like, well, if I'm not that, then what am I?
I don't know.
I don't know. And that's really scary. So that stops a lot of people. But the thing about it is that when you're not that, you've got this blank canvas that's there to be written on and created, that, has so much potential and purpose, that once you kind of get past that, I actually don't need that anymore. And it doesn't matter that other people expect me to be that way, because I know what's really important to me, and I'm going to create this version of me, and I'm going to be it, and I'm going to own it, and I'm not going to apologize for it.
Okay. Yeah,
that's what's so
lovely. I like it. Positive. Yeah. Okay, so mountains or beach?
Oh, I like both. Like, I live by the beach, so I live like an 8-minute walk from the beach at the moment. But I love being around trees. And
yes, I'm the same. I'm always split between the two. I love both. I've lived in, well, I haven't lived near the beach, but I've lived in the mountains and love the beach. Yeah.
Well, I lived in Ireland, so most of that was like, rolling hills and all that kind of stuff, which I love.
Yeah.
Although I don't I like being beside the beach. I don't like the sun, because the sun doesn't like me.
No, it doesn't like you. Yes. Fair skin. Yes. Yes. I've got a red-haired, fair-skinned sister. So yeah. Okay, chocolate or caramel?
See, you keep making me choose. I like both of them. in together.
Okay, here's one you can't have both. iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Yeah.
I haven't had an Android in a long time, but the ones that I had, I just wrecked them really quickly.
Okay. Walk or run?
Before I had Archie, run. Now the pelvic floor says walk.
At toddler pace, in fact, so quite slowly. While we look at everything.
Yeah. I ran a half marathon 3.5 years ago, 4 years ago. But yeah, since having the little bundle, I haven't really ran. I haven't ran at all, except to catch him.
Yes, at high speed sometimes.
Yes.
Heading for the road, particularly.
Yes.
I find.
Yes, that was Sunday. Yeah, multiple times.
Okay, is there a big switch?
Is there a big switch? Yeah. I think everyone has a big switch inside them. That decision that they're going to be the best version of themselves. That they, because it literally is that moment, that decision, that switch is flicked, where you go, hang on, this isn't good enough anymore. This is what I'm going for.
Yeah, and you've got to flick it yourself, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so just to close up, tell me a little bit about how Headway, Big Switch, and Soul Ignition, what they are, how they work together, for anybody who's interested.
So Headway is my company. So I needed a name, and I help people make headway. But yeah, that's the business side. The Big Switch is my online community where I bring women together who want to play in a bigger space than where they are right now, to help them kind of get more alignment and community in that. And then the Soul Ignition is it's kind of like this download that I had. It was the easiest thing I've created in years ever. And as I don't actually remember creating a lot of it. It was just such a flow experience. yeah, I was like, okay, and people want to do it. Okay, cool. But that soul ignition is really that journey into you. It's that journey into that deepest part of your soul to rewrite who you believe you are, what you think you're capable of, to gently chip away those old stories and patterns and things that hold us, everyone back, and then to gently guide to a point where you actually have a plan of what it is that you want to do from this aligned space, and being really congruent of, you know, who you are and what you're capable of. Without everyone else's BS dictating what that is.
Having a say, basically.
Like I've had, like, remember, like, you know, I actually said what I thought the other day, and I'm like, what? Like, and I'm like, oh, people, and they, you know, they've given themselves permission to let go of parts of their business that don't serve them anymore. You know, they've said things out loud that they've kept in the deepest part of their consciousness because it's too scary to say it out loud. Like, there's been huge amounts of transformations as a result of it, which is like, you know, I've got all these smiling faces about business, and, you know, people actually starting to make money now because they know their worth, they see their value, and they can actually charge for it.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds fantastic. So it's all online. I will pop links into the live after we're finished today, basically, so that people can find you. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for having me on. If anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out. I love talking about this stuff.
Yes, I think that's the most interesting thing about today, and it's kind of why I asked about, you know, why do you still do this? I think at that point your whole face lit up, and you were so animated about this is where I'm meant to be. I love doing this, and I can see transformation in people, and I think that's the key. You know what I mean? I think that's the key to any business. Even if you're not in a coaching business, it needs to be what you're meant to be doing. You need to be enthusiastic about it because it's hard slog, and you need to see what a difference it makes in people's lives. Otherwise, you know what I mean. You run out of enthusiasm, I think. So,
but if you had this conversation with me a year ago, I couldn't have told you who I was meant to serve. I couldn't have told you how I was meant to do it. I didn't really know who I was or any of that kind of stuff. That's why Soul Ignition exists today, because I went through that journey of, I need to figure this stuff out because I'm just spinning my wheels, going around in circles. You know, I'm going to have to get a job soon because it's not working. I'm not bringing in the finance stuff that I need to bring in. And I was just like, what? And I kept getting all these, like, I kept tuning in. I was like, am I meant to get a job? Like, you know, all these jobs were coming up, which were like right in my skill set, which is really weird for where I live. And I was like, I could totally, like, that job's my job. Like, I could do that job easy. And, and it was like that. But I was like, hang on. I was getting all these messages from everywhere, and this journey, all this stuff that all kind of accumulated. And I was like, yes, now I know what I'm meant to be doing. Brilliant. And now I know how I can serve. I know how I can, you know, deliver what I need to deliver. But if you had asked me a year ago, I couldn't have told you. I was really frustrated and angry, and
Interesting. What a difference a year makes.
Exactly. Crazy. But really, you know, it's been tough, don't get me wrong. Like, there's been a few crashes and mental breakdowns, and, you know, different things that happen. But, you know, I wouldn't change it. And I cherished all those really low moments because of the transformation that they've provided.
Okay. And that puts you in the best position, as far as I'm concerned, in order to take people through it, because you've been through the process yourself and you've seen what a difference it makes to your life. And so therefore you can pass that on, basically. I think if you don't go through that process yourself, it's very difficult for you to lead people. You know, I think there's quite a lot of coaches out there at the moment that are coaching on topics that they haven't necessarily walked themselves.
And that's hard to talk to. Like, it's hard to create a marketing message if you don't actually really know what it is to be in that space of that discomfort, so you can help people motivate into action.
Absolutely. Okay. Well,
awesome.
On that note, thank you once again, and I'll see you shortly, I'm sure.
Okay. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye. Do I get out of this or?